So your plan for this election was to come to women and say, forget the economy, forget immigration. Roe v. Wade was overturned. It's now a states' right issue as opposed to a federal issue. You thought that was going to be enough? You thought it was going to be enough for you to look at black men and say to black men, you're misogynistic and chauvinistic, and that's the reason why you're not voting for Kamala Harris? You thought it was going to be enough for the Latinos to bring up immigration when you're not paying attention enough that the Cubans think different than the Dominicans, and the Dominicans and the Cubans think different than the Colombians, and they think different than the Venezuelans and the Guatemalans and the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans, etc., etc. A lot of these Latinos in America want the borders closed.
Stephen A. Smith's appearance on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast set off sparks from the very start. There was no attempt to soften the blows. Both men tore into the Democratic Party, accusing it of obsessing over culture battles and image-driven politics that are sabotaging its own future. Smith bluntly called the DNC's decision to elevate Kamala Harris a complete misstep. Maher, usually the voice of liberal reason, looked genuinely heartbroken, as if the movement he once believed in had turned its back on him. This wasn't just a discussion, it was a clash of conviction, and what came next was intense.
The point at the end of this thing Friday is that I'm pissed at the Democrats because my issues, democracy, the environment, have no protectors now. Because you blew the election, I have nobody standing up for the two issues that are my issues.
Which is?
Democracy and the environment. It's my two most important issues. Those are not priorities in the new administration.
Okay.
In fact, they're antagonistic to both of them. So I have no champion in Washington. They have the courts, they have the House and the Senate, and you totally left me unguarded.
Maher argued that the Democratic Party's failures have weakened democracy itself. His outrage is understandable. He's witnessing the collapse of the very institution he supported for decades, but one has to ask, what democracy is he referring to? After all, Trump served his term and stepped down peacefully in 2020. Perhaps Maher was talking about the lawsuits against media networks. Kamala Harris frequently appeared on programs like 60 Minutes, using them as polished PR opportunities. Trump's counterpunches then weren't surprising. They were inevitable. And really, what did Maher expect from comedians like Colbert and Kimmel, whose anti-Trump tirades became nightly theater? If the punchline fails, it doesn't mean democracy is dying.
We can talk to the economy, immigration, crime in the streets, blah, blah, blah. Here's my ultimate issue. The arrogance of the Democratic Party.
I'm saying the same thing.
Arrogance, we're saying the same thing in two different ways. The arrogance of the second Democratic Party. Biden doesn't decide to run for re-election. You grease the skid so he doesn't have to go through a primary. June 27th, he shows up and he embarrasses himself. And positions naturally for the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to ultimately ascend and become the Democratic nominee. But the last time we saw her in a primary, she couldn't make it to Iowa. Did you really think that was going to work?
Smith, on the other hand, wasn't blindsided. He had predicted the Democrats' downfall long ago. To him, this was a slow-motion collapse everyone chose to ignore. He argued that Biden should have stepped aside before things reached this point. The warning signs, shrinking approval ratings, fading enthusiasm, and stubborn denial were everywhere. Instead of allowing a fair primary, the DNC handed the nomination to Harris as if it were her birthright. No debate, no fresh leadership, no energy. Smith was unsparing. This wasn't betrayal. It was pure political recklessness. The fall of the Democrats wasn't fate. It was self-inflicted.
And then here's what you did. Did you discuss the economy enough? No. You could have discussed the border because unlike Obama, who was quote unquote the deporter in chief, according to the Republicans, because he deported more immigrants than Trump did.
According to not just Republicans, but Democrats. There were Democrats who called him that. He
deported more immigrants than Trump, which means he just didn't talk about it, but he did it.
Smith also called out another glaring contradiction in the party's narrative on immigration. He reminded listeners that Barack Obama oversaw the highest number of deportations in U.S. history. Obama recognized that uncontrolled borders posed a national risk. Yet when Trump enforced similar policies, the same Democrats who once applauded Obama erupted in outrage. According to Smith, their shift had little to do with compassion and everything to do with optics and votes. When Obama enforced the law, it was responsible governance. When Trump did, it was labeled cruelty. The inconsistency was obvious. Smith's point was simple. The The DNC's stance on immigration changes with the camera angle, not with principle.
Biden walks in the office and day one you sign an executive order that opens the border, and you let more than 12 million immigrants cross the border illegally, and you don't think that's going to be a problem? You knew that the governors DeSantis and in Florida, Abbott and Texas and others were going to sit up there and attack sanctuary cities by busing these immigrants to your city since you had no problem with it. You were ill prepared to deal with it, okay? All of this stuff was going on.
Reality doesn't bend to emotion, Smith continued. The so-called open border strategy of recent years didn't bring kindness. It brought disorder. Border towns were overwhelmed, police resources stretched thin, and shelters overcrowded. These weren't accidents, but the result of deliberate policies driven more by image than by security. Now, President Trump faces the aftermath of those decisions. The humanitarian crises, trafficking surges, and strained local systems trace back to leaders who prized political theater over problem solving. Smith wasn't being harsh, he was being honest.
To bring up immigration when you're not paying attention enough that the Cubans think different than the Dominicans, and the Dominicans and the Cubans think different than the Colombians, and they think different than the Venezuelans and the Guatemalans and the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans, etc., etc. A lot of these Latinos in America want the borders closed. You didn't pay attention to that? You're from California. You were a district attorney here, you were a state attorney general here, you were a senator representing here, and you didn't know.
That, in essence, is where the Democrats lost their way. They stopped listening to ordinary Americans. Instead of focusing on everyday concerns, they built platforms around what sounded morally impressive. Ideology took the wheel while reality was left behind. As Maher pointed out, Trump understood something the DNC ignored. Voters cared about safety, jobs, stability, and respect abroad. He tapped into that frustration while Democrats talked down to their base. The result wasn't just a failed campaign, it was a disconnect between leaders and the people they claimed to represent.
Pay attention to that? You're from California. You were a district attorney here, you were a state attorney general here, you were a senator representing here, and you didn't know that the Latinos were going to say, yo, we don't like open borders? You didn't know that?
Yeah,
and so I'm looking at it and I'm saying all of these things are going on. All of these things are going on. And your argument essentially was, you didn't say it, but this is essentially your argument. It's her turn. It's her turn.
The Democratic campaign lacked clear goals or conviction. Rather than offering tangible solutions, it leaned on symbolism. Support Harris because it's her time, they said, without giving reasons why. That's not leadership, that's entitlement. There was no compelling vision for the economy, for border policy, or for restoring public confidence. And when critics questioned Harris's record, they were dismissed as biased. Instead of addressing doubts, the DNC weaponized identity politics. Voters grew tired of being guilt-tripped. They wanted competence, not slogans. Elections aren't coronations, they're earned victories. And the Democrats forgot that.
The Democratic Party is ideologically captured by identity politics.
I'm totally with you 1,000%. Listen, Bill, just so you know, I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a social liberal. Live and let live, bro.
And a freak in the sheet.
You know what I'm saying?
If you're 50,
I do try.
give us a call.
I do try, no doubt. But here's the deal, man. Listen, I'm a social liberal. And what I mean by that is gay rights, absolutely. Transgender rights and all this stuff. I got no issues with you. I don't want anybody. I'm a black man. I don't want anybody's civil rights violated. I don't want anybody being persecuted in the streets of America. I don't want you being mistreated. I don't want you being denied the same rights that I have. That's fine. But the Democrats took it too far.
Both Smith and Maher agreed on one undeniable truth. The Democratic Party went too far down the path of identity politics. While issues of race and inequality are vital, the way they were handled weakened the cause. In the rush to appear inclusive, merit was pushed aside. True diversity isn't about checking boxes, it's about empowering capable people from every background. When standards and qualifications are sacrificed for appearances, institutions crumble. America has always valued effort over entitlement. Elevating someone purely for symbolic reasons isn't progress.
Because it wasn't just about their rights. You wanted folks to like and embrace and accept everything. Excuse me, there are some people that, guess what? They might like strippers, but they ain't messing. It's all right. Yo, do you. But I don't want it in my face. You got people that think like that, and knowing that that's the reality, and knowing that that doesn't even make up 1% of the population, you are caught on tape, if you're Kamala Harris, saying, quote, I'm for transgender operations for prisoners? You didn't think Trump was going to use that?
It's regression. In chasing the image of fairness, the DNC neglected the essence of it. This, they argued, exposes the deeper flaw in radical progressivism. Though it may sound compassionate, it often defies logic. A healthy society needs guardrails, moral, cultural, and practical. Yet the far left keeps stretching those limits beyond reason. Consider the push to allow minors to make irreversible medical decisions. That's not progress, it's irresponsibility. Compassion must be balanced with wisdom. Smith and Maher's message was clear. When ideology replaces common sense, society falters. Denying basic truths for the sake of appearances doesn't build justice. It erodes it. And here's where their conversation came full circle. Donald Trump, for all his controversy, connected with the core of the American spirit.
Because in the end, when you trying to pay your bills,
Okay, but here's the
you got peace in the streets that you worried about, you're not going for that.
here's the silver lining.
You're trying to win.
I think the election showed we're much less racially tribal than we thought we were. I mean, Trump is a strange guy to bring together all these different coalitions, but you know, he like won Latino men.
13%. They said it was a 13% jump.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever it was.
And a 5% jump in the black vote, and even more of that amongst.
His policies were pragmatic rather than performative. He spoke directly to working families, suburban households, and everyday citizens who felt ignored. Most people aren't asking for utopia. They want secure borders, safer communities, and an economy they can trust. For many, Trump represented that. Despite media mockery, his straightforward approach delivered tangible results. Jobs returned, crime declined, and America regained confidence abroad. Stability mattered more than slogans. In the end, Smith and Maher voiced what countless Americans already feel. The Democratic Party has lost its grounding in real-world concerns. It traded skill for symbolism, leadership for loyalty tests, and logic for rhetoric. Trump didn't defeat them, they defeated themselves. Until they stop lecturing and start listening, the people they claim to fight for will keep walking away. And that wraps up today's discussion. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thoughtful commentary ahead.